So thanks everybody for joining us this evening for what I believe to be a really interesting topic, interesting webinar on safe driving tips, and especially for teens. And we're really fortunate to have Jim Clair with us this evening. Jim is the founder and owner of a driving school called Ultimate Defensive Driving School. It's located in a suburban Pittsburgh area, and he started it in 2006. And Jim's school provides training for companies and individuals to reduce their driving risks on the road. Jim is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and the Pennsylvania National Guard. So his business is certified disabled veteran-owned business through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and various other governmental entities. And I really appreciate that Jim was awarded the United States Veteran Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2007. And if you've attended any of our webinars in the past, you know that we have a real heart for veterans and a real heart for entrepreneurs out there. We try to support small business as much as we possibly can. I will say personally, my kids have taken lessons from Jim and his students, his teachers as well. And we've been very, very satisfied. And, they really made it a great experience and learned a lot of eye-opening things. So I'm really happy to have Jim here, and I welcome him, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, and I'll shut up.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, Michael. I really appreciate being here this evening because the way I look at this is, we're forming the leaders of our country, our communities at 16 years old. So we don't know what these young people might do in life. So we really take our time in doing that. But tonight I really want to concentrate on the reasons why we train and how to train. I'm going to give you some pointers and some techniques on how to actually work with your young person as they start driving out there, okay? So bear with me. I'm technologically deprived here. I'm going to show a quick video here to start this up. Bear with me. As long as I can get it rolling. Do share. All right, you all should see like a YouTube video right now. Is everybody seeing that? I'm going to go ahead and play this. I'm only going to play about 2.5 minutes of it.
Good afternoon. Grief has consumed a local community after 2 teenage sisters died in an early morning crash.
17-year-old Shauna Murphy and her 15-year-old sister Megan were killed when the Land Rover they were riding in smashed into a utility pole in Southborough around 1 o'clock this morning. A third teen is hospitalized with serious injuries.
They were like the type of person that you'd go to and, say, oh, where's my class? And, they would be like, oh, let me take you there.
So we get a phone call that's saying, I wanted to ask you how many people were in your car. Do you own a Land Rover? And we said, yes. And they said, do you know how many people were in it? We said, we're not sure. Why are you asking? I said, I really can't tell you. And we asked you, what do you mean you can't tell us? And he says, well, I'll get back to you. And so we called back a few minutes later and finally heard that there was an accident and that they were looking for, the participants in the car.
While this was going on, we got a report that Chris and Michelle that Michelle, was back at the fire station, had gone there.
I went immediately down to the fire station because I'm an EMT and I know the EMTs and I know all the guys down at the fire department. So I was down there immediately. And I knew there was something wrong.
When I pulled up on the scene and saw a car impaled upside down on a telephone pole and the responders standing around, and there were 6 separate 13,800 volt electric lines that were on the telephone pole. And because the midsection of the telephone pole was removed in the accident, the wires sagged and they were arcing on the trees.
I was like, I knew I was in an accident, but I didn't even know the car hit a pole. I didn't know we were in the air. I thought it was on the ground just to the side. And the next thing I remembered after that was just being upside down and like being crushed and just like seeing lights. And I didn't know, obviously I was in shock, so I didn't really know what was going on.
After a while.
So what I started that out with, everybody, is to kind of get our brains all on the same page. These are the things that we want to prevent, especially with our young people, because we have no idea what they might do in life. Whatever they might do in life, we might need, okay? So I wanted to kind of crack the ice with that, and get everybody in tune with that. So let me go through this here real quick. Now, I don't do a lot of numbers with these presentations, but I think it's kind of important to see some numbers, all right? Seatbelts. I cannot stress enough about seatbelts and wearing a seatbelt. It is extremely critical to make that person, whoever's driving the car, whoever's in that vehicle, to go home every day. That's the most important reasons why you're going to go home, is wear that seatbelt. You can see the numbers. There's 15,000 lives saved every year. 76% of the time, when a passenger is ejected or a driver is ejected out of the vehicle, they usually don't make it. The other 24% probably have some really, really bad injuries I got to deal with for the rest of their life. So I can't stress enough about putting that seatbelt on. First thing your young person should do when they get inside that vehicle, before they even start the car up, is click that seatbelt. And I don't care if they're moving the vehicle from one end of the driveway to the other end of the driveway, because you never know what might happen. That seatbelt keeps them inside the vehicle like a cocoon where all the airbags are. If they're laying outside the street, or if we're laying outside the street with no seatbelt on, the airbags do nothing for us out there. So it's very important to wear seatbelts out there. Now I'm going to run a quick video here. I'm going to show it to you all twice as we go through this, all right? Give me a second to get it started here. One more time. Okay, now, if you notice a couple of things, you can all point down and write down probably 5 or 6 different things that gentleman was doing incorrectly. Falling asleep at the wheel of the car. But the biggest thing is his seatbelt. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. If you notice where he ended up, he didn't make it. The car rolled, he was outside the vehicle, and he ended up with a bad brain injury and died. But look at the driver compartment, everybody. If that person would have stayed right in that driver compartment with that seatbelt on, that person walked away from that crash with probably maybe a couple bruises. That'd be about it. But you got to stay in that cocoon. If you're not in that cocoon, the driver's safety cocoon, that's what's going to happen. You're probably going to end up in a bad situation, either passed away or a bad brain injury, something that's going to affect your life for the rest of your life. Okay, now check this out. There's some outside influence out there for all the parents. This is what our teens are dealing with out there. So 67% of the teens have felt unsafe when someone else has been driving that car, okay? So your young person already has been sitting inside of a vehicle and they felt unsafe. Maybe it's one of their older friends driving, or maybe it's one of their friends' parents driving and they felt unsafe, okay? It's usually speed that will do that to them. They'll get this little wiggle in the rear end that makes them feel a little unsafe. But check out the next number, everybody. Only 45% of those young people would say something to that driver like, hey, would you slow down? I don't feel safe, all right? If there's young people out there right now watching this little presentation, please make them promise that they will say something to that driver. Slow it down, because they want to make sure they get home that evening. Now, if a young person is not confident enough in their leadership ability to say something to that driver, just tell that, everybody has a cell phone nowadays, just tell that driver they're going to get ready to get sick and they're going to throw up. I guarantee that driver will whip into the nearest Sheets or the nearest Get-Go or nearest gas station. They can get out of that vehicle and make a phone call. Hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm feeling sick. Could you come get me? And I can pretty much guarantee the parent's going to come, no questions asked, okay? Now, about 89% of the teens say their parents are the most influential when it comes to encouraging safe driving. Young drivers start to learn to drive about 11 and 12 years old. And they do this by watching their parents. So again, I'm not here to tell you how to parent, but I am here to tell you a couple of things about driving. By watching their parents, if that parent is doing something incorrectly, like going 10, 15 miles an hour to speed limit, not stopping fully at a stop sign and using it like a yield sign. Well, guess who else is going to have that same exact technique? That young person, because they're watching their parents drive, and that's how they learn, okay? So be very critical. If you have a young person come up on driving here at that age, be very careful, because they're watching every move you make, okay? Every move you make, they're watching. A couple of survey findings here as well, too, from the Allstate Foundation, everybody. Most people understand the severity of teen driving issue, but many are misinformed about the main cause of teen-involved crashes. About 60% of the people correctly identify the automobile as the number one killer of teens. Currently, in the United States, the number one killer automobiles for teenagers, 16 to 20 years old, is the number one killer out there, okay? Now, nearly half of those parents, about 50%, incorrectly believe that driving drunk is the main cause of teen-involved crashes. When in reality, it's driver error, distracted driving, are the main cause of teen-involved crashes. We'll talk more about distracted driving here in a little bit. I know you're all sitting there thinking about it. We'll bring it up here in a little bit. All right, a couple more things about parent survey findings here as well. As our young people, as our kids are growing up, this is what we talk to our young people about as they're growing up, okay? About 77% of us parents talk about the dangers of smoking. 72% of us talk about the dangers of taking drugs. 70% of us parents talk about peer pressure. 51% talk about underage drinking. 40% talk about drunk driving. 32% of us parents talk about safe sex. But all the way down the bottom, only about 27% of parents talk to their young people about safe driving. And again, remember, it's the number one killer of teenagers right now is driving, right? So from this night forward, if you do have one of these people, one of these young people who are getting ready to drive, take this off the bottom of the list and put it on the top of the list. They should hear something about driving as they go through this training process, as they're doing this for the next year, every day. And I don't care if it's something as simple as, hey, Michaela, make sure your seatbelt's buckled. Hey, it's raining outside today. Make sure your lights are on. Just so they know that you're thinking about their driving, that means they're going to think about it as well, and they'll be a lot better behind the wheel as well. Couple scary facts here real quick. Now, for the last 10 years, teen fatalities were on their way down. And all of a sudden, back in 2019, this is the latest safety numbers just came out, they spiked back up again. So they went down for 10 years, and all of a sudden they spiked back up again. And they're attributing that to drivers' distractions. Just a cell phone, but as a distraction as a whole. You'll see here in a few minutes, there's a lot more just behind that cell phone, but it's mostly distractions are doing it. About 60% of teens have seen their parents texting and driving. So if parents are texting and driving, the young people are going to say, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. So from this night forward, everybody, if you have that cell phone in here, pull over, use it all you want. It's just not worth it. It's not worth setting an example for your young people out there. About 97% of the teens know that texting and driving is dangerous. Yet 43%, you know what? I'll be all right. I'll be able to get away with it. You know, maybe one time they might be able to get away with that texting and driving. The second time, something serious may happen out there, right? Now, this is crazy. Think about this one. We lose 11 teens every day in the United States just due to texting and driving. 11 fatalities every day just due to texting and driving. That's just texting and driving. That's nothing else that's going on in there, okay? 11 teens. We will never know what those 11 teens each day that get killed with that cell phone, what they could have done in life for us, okay? Composing a text or reading a text takes about 4.2 seconds to send or receive, on average. If you're doing 55 miles an hour, you just want the length of a football field blind. Think about that. Jump out on the highway. Do not do this, though. Do not do this. On a highway, close your eyes for 4.2 seconds doing 55 miles an hour. Something bad will happen, but that's basically what's happening when they put these phones in their hand and they're driving on the road. That's a long time to be not seeing what's going on the roadway out there, okay? Now, power to parent instructor partnership. If you like to use driver education out there, try to make a partnership with the instructor so they can explain these facts as well too. About 6,000 to 7,000 young people every year, and again, we know it's the number one killer right now. 6,000 to 7,000 young people every year in the United States are killed behind the wheel of a car, okay? And again, it's number one killer of teens. Now, this next number really blew me away when I was doing the research for this. I went to about 3 or 4 different places that actually verify these numbers, okay? About 58% of the 6,000 to 7,000 young people, no seatbelts. 58% of the young people are not wearing seatbelts still. There's a disconnect somewhere when they get these licenses not wearing their seatbelts, okay? So there's a disconnect. So please preach about that seatbelts. Let me give you a quick story about a neighbor here up the street. When my daughter was at school here at high school, this young man and her grew up together in a neighborhood. Seniors in school. This young man is driving down by the Cranberry Golf Course here in the local community. There's a roundabout down there now, but it used to be a 4-way intersection. My friend is on the other side of the intersection watching this young man pull out into the intersection, okay? This young man pulls out and gets T-boned in a crash, which is a side angle impact crash, okay? My friend was sitting in her seat of her car. She watched this young man fly out of the driver's seat out the passenger window and landed 20 or 30 feet down the road, okay? He landed on his head. It was a country road, so she's the only one there. She grabs her cell phone, jumps out of the car to run down to help this young man. As she's calling 911, looking over top of him, she's watching this young man pass away. She has no idea to help him. I'll tell you his injuries here in 1 second, okay? Now, wouldn't you know, as she hung up the phone, 2 nurses pulled up getting off of work. They went to work on this young man until paramedics got there. They brought the helicopters in, put this young man in a helicopter, flew him down to Pittsburgh. So he's at Pittsburgh Allegheny General Hospital. He's down there for a number of about 18 or 19 weeks of surgeries. Then he goes to Harmonville Rehab Center for another 18, 19 weeks of rehab. We get wind he's coming home. So my wife and daughter, they go up to the house. They put the balloons on the mailbox to welcome this young man home. My daughter wasn't gone 5 minutes. She come walking back in the front door profusely crying. And her nickname was Bump because she played volleyball. I said, Bump, what's the deal? What's the matter? She couldn't talk. She went right into her room. That's kind of odd. So my wife walked in there shortly thereafter, okay? I said, hon, what's the deal? She says, Jim, it's not the same kid. I said, what do you mean it's not the same kid? Well, I drove by a couple of days later. I understood why they were upset. When he went through that window, he broke every bone in his face. My friend was literally looking at a red sponge, she said. There was no features left in this young man's face. And as I drove by and looked, they did the best job they could of putting this young man's face back together again, but it was definitely different, okay? Definitely different. Now, here's the kicker. Police here in Cranberry, I stay in close contact with them because whenever there's a crash, I like to get the research and find out what happened so I can pass on how to prevent it. So I grabbed the police officer to investigate the crash, the tall guy, come towering over top me. I asked, what happened? He says, Jimmy, if that kid would have been wearing his seatbelt, he'd have walked away. It wasn't that bad of a crash, all right? So everybody, please stress these seatbelts out there. It's very, very important to put these seatbelts on. Next number there, about 26% are alcohol related, everybody, which is another crazy high number. Next year, year after, sometimes these young people start going to these graduation parties. They make a mistake. Well, heck, pick up that cell phone and make that call. Do not get behind the wheel and don't get in a car that someone else has been drinking either. It's just not worth it. Make the phone call. I guarantee parents will come, no questions asked, okay? Now, there's a couple of other things here as we close up these statistics. 1970, there's about 79 million cars on the road. Right now, in the United States, there's 169 million cars on the road. So that's what they're dealing with out on the road. A lot more vehicles on the road, a lot less trainings being done. So there's some really bad things that happen on the road. We see it every day. Most teens will have a crash within 12 months of getting their license. That's usually a statistical fact as well, too. Parents will know this one. Cell phone use is being equated to being 0.08 drunk on the road. And we know this. I mean, none of us are here now. We've used that cell phone when we're driving. When I worked at UPS for 21 years, I was a heavy cell phone user. My cell phone was pretty much in my ear at all times. One day I'm driving home. I'm in an intense phone conversation with my operation. The next thing I look around, I missed my exit 2 exits ago. I don't have it. Something happens between our brains and that cell phone. It's magnified with the young person's brain, okay? Last one here, think about this one. Your brain takes in and makes more decisions driving 1 mile. All I want you guys to do is just drive 5,280 feet. In that 5,280 feet, your brain just made more decisions than an airline pilot on a 747 from New York to Los Angeles. That's a fact. If you ever sat down as you're driving and write down the things you're doing driving that vehicle, there'll be a list about 20 some things long. It's extremely long. You're multitasking at all times when you're driving that vehicle. All right, this is where some young people start to dislike me a little bit. They always want to have their friends in the car. Okay, hey, listen, I'm going to get my license. We're going to go here. We're going here. We're going to go all these different places. All right. So as parents, you got to really take a look at that. All right. This schedule right here, this little chart that you're seeing right here, right now. Most states in the union are pretty much the same laws. They're only allowed to have one young person inside that vehicle with them for the first 6 months of driving, unless it's family members. All right. Now, I'm here to tell you, too, that's even dangerous to have one young person inside that vehicle with a new driver. All right. The way you read this chart is pretty simple. The first vehicle you see up there, the blue person, the driver, that's your young person driving. Those 3 red people inside that vehicle are their friends inside that vehicle. Notice what happens to the risk of having a crash. It quadruples. It doesn't matter their skill. It doesn't matter their grade point average. It quadruples that they're going to have a crash. All right. Now, second one down, put your young person inside that vehicle driving. Only put 2 young people inside that vehicle. Notice it doubles. The risk doubles that they're going to have a crash. Okay. And it's called because of distractions. Next one down is pretty much the law in every state. Your young person in a vehicle with only one of their friends inside the car, it increases by about 44% that they're going to have a crash. It's still high, still way high. I'll be honest with you, when my kids started driving, I didn't have anybody in the car with them, nor were they allowed to get in someone else's car either. I just didn't want anything to happen to them, nor did I want anything to happen where they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their life. I didn't want them burdened with something that did happen, okay? The last thing up here, notice this one, parents. If you put your young person inside the car, put an adult over the age of 35 inside that car, notice what happens to the crash risk then. It decreases by 62%. It decreases by 62%. Check that out. Okay, now, I'm going to go over a couple techniques with you all that you can use when you're out there on the road. Not just young people, but again, I revert back to my commercial days at UPS. This is the same exact system I did there. And I'll give you a good briefing on these and how to utilize them, because this system works. I had drivers that worked for me for 35 years that never had a crash. The system works once you apply it. You just got to apply it, okay? Now, how you remember, it's pretty simple. It's an acronym. All good kids like milk. All good kids like milk. First one, you want to aim high in steering. Second one, you want to get the big picture. Third one, you want to keep your eyes moving, leave yourself an out, and make sure they see you. All good kids like milk. That's how you remember them. It's pretty simple to remember it that way. It's just burnt my brain that way from 21 years of training out there, and that's why I remember it as well too. All good kids like milk. Let's go to a little bit of detail about those now. Now, the first one is the aim high in steering portion. What you all want to be doing when you're driving your vehicle, you want your eyes looking way up the road the vehicle's going to be. Not where it's at, but where it's going to be down the road. They call that eye lead time. My eyes are leading the vehicle anywhere from 8 to 12 seconds by lead time down the road, all right? In this case here, if you notice something, look as far down that road as you can, up around that bend on that roadway. Notice what your peripheral vision does. It kicks in and sees everything down low anyway. So that's how to utilize your eyes correctly. Look way up the road the vehicle's going to be, not where it's at, but where it's going to be down the road, all right? Now, that'll do a couple of things for you, everybody. One, it's going to automatically center you in your lane of traffic. You all remember riding a bicycle when you're a little kid. You're riding down the road, you look down at your front wheel. To go straight, you had to keep steering. As soon as you looked up, the bike smoothed out and right down the middle of the road. That's how you aim high in steering. Now, more importantly, what it does for you, it finds you a safe path well ahead. You see things happen the way down the road, you can't get involved in them. You're the person on the side of the road making a 911 call safe and sound. So that's how you want your eyes. You want your eyes looking way up the road where the vehicle's going to be, not where it's at. Eye lead time. Next one, all good. G, get the big picture, okay? Now, let me explain what the big picture is first. You all have pictures at home that hang on the wall. Each picture is a frame of glass, right? Well, if you look at your front windshield of your car, there's a big frame around it and a big piece of glass. That's your big picture. As a driver, you need to know everything that's going on inside that big picture. And what you're looking for is anything that might be a risk to you. Car pulling out, pedestrian, bicyclist, low-hanging tree branch, pothole in the road, debris in the road. Anything that might be a risk to you is what you're looking for in that big picture, okay? And as you're driving, you should ask yourself a couple of questions. How wide, how deep, and what's in that big picture that can affect my driving? What's not going to let me go home tonight? And if you can answer the questions, then you know, okay? It's called hazard recognition, all right? Now, what's to do for you? It's going to keep you away from billboards. I'll explain that in a little bit. And it helps you make smooth, safe stops and turns. We've all ridden with somebody where they come up to a stop sign and you almost get a whiplash, okay? Where they come up to a red light, almost get a whiplash. That tells you the driver is not aiming high, right? They're looking right over the top of the hood of the car, and all of a sudden they see red stops and a red light, and they're hitting the brakes real hard. So if you ever feel that happen, especially with a new driver, you know that they're not looking in the right place. Have them pick their eyes up and look a lot further down the road, all right? And stay back and see it all. Relax. The further back you are, the better off you're going to be. We're all going to get there, okay? We're all going to get there. Next one. All good kids, K, keep your eyes moving. All right. You're going to see an exercise here in a little bit. I'm going to bring an exercise up where you're going to actually see how your eyes work. All right. Long work week, parents. Friday night, you get home, you're wiped out, you sit down in front of the TV set. You're going to notice something happens to your vision. If you just stare at your TV set long enough, your vision on the sides will gray out. It's called tunnel vision. That's how your eyes work. Okay. But as soon as you move your eyes a little bit, everything comes back on again. Same thing happens when you drive. They call it motion blindness. If you're just staring straight ahead, you're going to miss things on the sides. And you will actually miss cars pulling out, pedestrians, bicyclists, you name it, you're going to miss them. So that's why you scan your big picture about every 2 seconds or so, okay? And inside that big picture, your mirrors are located there as well, too. So about every 6 to 8 seconds, you should do a complete mirror scan. Left mirror, center, right, back to the front again. So that does, obviously what's in front of you is more important, so that's why you're only doing every 6 to 8 seconds. But as a driver, you need to know everything that's going on around that vehicle, all 4 sides, because crashes don't always happen in the front, everybody. They happen on the sides and they happen in the rear. So when you do these mirror checks, it gives you what they call situational awareness. I know everything is going around me out there, okay? Everything is going around me. All right, next one. This is one of the most important ones, everybody. All good kids like. L, leave yourself an out. Always have an escape route plan for your vehicle, all right? There are certain reasons why you take your vehicle off the road on purpose, okay? And your escape route is always going to the right. 3 biggest reasons. Number 1, head-on collision. You never take a head-on collision ever. Because you think about this, if you're doing 50 and they're doing 50, that's 100-mile-an-hour closure. Someone's going to be hurt really bad or else killed, okay? So you take what they call a skateboard, drive it off the road, put it through a fence post, put it in somebody's front yard, take out a mailbox. You're better off hitting a stationary object as opposed to that moving object, okay? Two other reasons why you'll take your vehicle off the road, everybody, is a pedestrian or bicyclist. Because if you hit one, you're probably going to kill them. So you're better off banging the vehicle up, all right? But you never leave the road for an animal. And you got to condition your brains that way. Our brains are conditioned to swerve for an animal. If a deer pops out in front of us or a dog pops out in front of us, we're conditioned to swerve the vehicle. Bad news. When you swerve a vehicle, our vehicles aren't made to swerve. Sometimes you can get into a roll situation and what have you. Animal pops out in front of you, you can brake, you hit it, that's the way it is. Everybody goes home safe and sound, the vehicle gets fixed, okay? So the only time you leave the road is to save a life. Because when you guys do leave a road, there's an opportunity for you to get hurt. It's the last resort to save a life out there, okay? The last resort to save a life. And always expect the unexpected. Never trust that driver next to you, ever. I don't care if your mom or your dad's driving right next to you. Never trust that other driver. Always rely on yourself to keep yourself safe out there. And the last one is M, make sure they see you. All good kids like milk. M, make sure they see you, okay? Use your lights, horns, signals. Whatever it takes for you to let these other drivers around you know what you're going to do, then you do. Just because everybody around you doesn't use signals anymore, they don't communicate in traffic anymore, make sure you're doing it, okay? Which is very, very important. Now, I'm a big believer in lights, all right? By law, most states, construction zones, wipers on, lights on, dusk to dawn. Now, when my instructors get in our vehicles, the first thing they do is turn the lights on. I don't care if it's a sunny day or not. Because of what, 20, 25 bucks a bulb? If it can save me from one crash, it's worth it to me. So we turn our lights on 24/7. That's what we do in our vehicles. It might be a good technique for you all to try out there. Just put your lights on. Don't rely on the sensors to turn your lights on for you. Sometimes it may not get dark enough when it's raining and your lights should be on, which you'll see here in a minute. Turn them on. Just turn them on when you first get in the car. 20 bucks a bulb. And the LED bulbs, they don't even burn out anyway. Most new cars have the LED bulbs. All right, now I'll give you a little more detail on this. 4 ways to aim high and steering helps a good driver become a better driver. You adjust your speed to visibility. If you always see that far down the road, get out of the gas pedal a little bit. Slow down. We'll get there same amount of time, okay? We'll get there same amount of time. Slow down. Give yourself a little more time, all right? You also make turns within 3 feet of the curb line as well, too. Now, this is a situation where some of y'all might have seen this. Walmart parking lot. You're driving up and down the lanes looking for that parking spot. Sometimes what will happen is that person driving the car will bump the curb or they'll swing way wide and go over the yellow line and touch the other person's lane. That tells you the person's not aiming high either. So what you want to tell that person is, hey, look where you want the vehicle to go. Don't look where it's at. Look where you want it to go. And sure as heck, they'll come within 3 feet of the curb and stay right in their lane as well, too. So you always see where the vehicle will be, not where it's at, but where it will be down the road. All right, here's the 5 indicators that tell you you're doing it right. If you're aiming high and steering, you always stay centered in the lane properly. You avoid protrusions, have smooth stopping and steering maneuvers. Everything's smooth. You don't feel stop, you don't feel go, everything's real smooth. You'll make turns within 3 feet of the curb without hitting it. You also make smooth stops. And you also use your high beams properly when you're out there, all right? When you're aiming high, if your high beams are on, you see a person coming, you know to dim your lights down. All right, getting the big picture is this next one. All good kids like milk. Now, a little detail on getting the big picture, okay? When you're driving in city traffic, you want to be looking about a block ahead, everybody, from building line to building line. So wherever the building touches the ground on the right, the building touches the ground on the left. But that way you include the sidewalks. Because guess who's on the sidewalks? Pedestrians. If you've seen pedestrians in the city lately, they're walking and texting now. So when you're scanning from side to side like that, you might see that person walk between the car to avoid that crash as well, too, okay? Second one, when you're out on the highway, on open country, look about a half a mile ahead to both sides of the right of way from fence line to fence line, okay? So if I'm driving on a northbound highway, why would I glance over the southbound highway? Because a head-on collision. A person could come through that medial strip. I'm being prepared and look where my escape route's going to be. I look fence line to fence line because my eyes might pick up deer coming across the road. I might be able to avoid that crash as well, too. Now, next one is probably the most critical one. We drive in these areas all day long. The number one thing to protect in a residential neighborhood is obviously kids, okay? Kids will look right at you and walk right out in front of you. So there's some techniques we use when we're in residential mode, okay? Number one, usually the posted speed limit in a residential neighborhood is 25. Now, until the day you die, do 20 or under. 20 or under gives you more time to react, and you'll still get to the other side of that neighborhood exact same amount of time anyway, okay? Secondly, if you notice when you're in a residential neighborhood, there's never any lines painted in the middle of the road, but there's usually a hump where the lanes meet or a crease where the lanes meet. Put your left wheels on top of that crease, okay? So when you drive over towards the left, you just gave yourself an extra 3 or 4 foot of space on the right side of the vehicle. 3 or 4 foot of space, 20 or under, you got more time to react. So if a person comes backing out of a driveway or a kid comes riding his bike out in front of you, you have more time to react to it. I call it a safety bubble. Your air bubble around the vehicle is a lot larger, you have more time to react to that, all right? Now, as you drive through a residential neighborhood, look for any signs you may have kids out. Number one you'd see is toys in the yard, garage doors being open, people out, dogs out. And when you see one kid out in a neighborhood, they're like deer, they travel in herds. You might have one over here and 4 or 5 more on the other side of the road. Slow down, because again, they're unpredictable. And you want to make sure you protect that neighborhood when you're driving through there too. All right, here's the 4 advantages attained by getting the big picture. You adjust to changing traffic patterns. You avoid surprise. You have smooth driving. You avoid delays too. You avoid tailgating, because tailgating causes you to lose the big picture. Quickly on tailgating, everybody. We've all been in a situation as drivers where someone passed us, they cut in a little too close and we're tailgating somebody. You ever notice where your eyes go? You lose what they call the big picture. Your eyes will automatically lock on that person's bumper because your brain perceives that as a hazard. So you're gonna be watching that bumper, you're losing the big picture. There's a good chance you can run into that person in front of you. You ever find yourself in a tailgating situation, get out of it immediately. Back off or change lanes. Do not rely on that person in front of you to tell you when to stop, okay? Don't rely on that person in front. Here's the 4 indicators to tell you you're doing it right. If you're getting the big picture out to everybody, you avoid traps behind stopped vehicles. You'll make smooth stops at that stop sign or red light. You'll maintain 6 to 8 second following distance, okay? 6 to 8. Every book that you may read about driving tells you 4 seconds is enough. It's nowhere near enough, everybody. And you can all try this. It's very simple to figure out. There's all kinds of different formulas. People say, well, one car length for every 10 miles an hour. It's too hard to figure out. You just do it with time. It's simple. So no matter what your speed is, you just do 6 to 8 seconds. You'll always be safe. And how you figure out simple. When the vehicle in front of you gets to a spot in the road, maybe it's a crack, maybe it's a telephone pole, maybe it's the end of a guardrail, a sign. As soon as they get to it, start counting. 1001, 1002. When you get to it, stop counting. That tells your time interval between you and that person in front of you. If you're 6 to 8 seconds or more, you're in the ballpark. You're fine. You got plenty of time to figure things out if something happens up there, okay? Plenty of time. But if you set yourself down even to 4, I'll give you 5 seconds. Put yourself down to 5 seconds and watch what happens to your eyes. Your eyes will lock on that person's bumper in front of you again because your brain perceives that as a hazard. Just fade back 1 more second, and then you're back to getting the big picture. You can look in this parking lot, that parking lot, up ahead. You can look every which way. You're back to getting that big picture again. But 6 to 8 seconds is your minimum. Personally, I drive a lot of times. I'm driving at 10 seconds, and I still get there same amount of time. All right, keeping your eyes moving, everybody. Very important. If you're driving up to an intersection and you have a green light, don't assume someone won't run that red light. All right. In this case here, this is an intersection in India, and I use this because you can see what's going on here. One of my clients actually knows this intersection, said there's about 4 or 5 crashes a week in this intersection. All right. So it's kind of crazy what's going on here. The bus gets hit, obviously, in the intersection. Another car comes through, another person's walking out of the crash. And I can guarantee you that bus that got hit, there's some people that got hurt in that vehicle, all right? Side angle impact crashes are the second worst crash you can have, all right? So just because you're approaching an intersection and you see a green light, make sure you scan both ways because people do run red lights. Don't assume the best, always assume the worst. All right, now why your eyes should not stay glued to an object? It's very simple. Staring causes you to lose the big picture. We talked about that. You'll see an exercise here in a second. It also causes you to get into a stare and fall asleep. There's about 100,000 crashes every year, 1,500 deaths every year, okay? Now, I'll give you a quick story on myself, personal history story. 21st year at UPS, I'm driving before I got transferred on Youngstown, Ohio, which is about an hour away. It's a highway drive, turnpike drive, in an hour, bang, you're there. The problem was I was leaving at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'd work all night, a night operation, and then drive home the next day at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. If any of you work nights, you probably know where I'm going with this, okay? About 7 months into this operation, I'm driving home one day. It was a gorgeous day. It was sunny. It was beautiful. And I had to pull up between the Ohio and Pennsylvania line. At that time, there was no easy pass. You had to pay. So I'm handing the guy my receipt. He's handing my receipt. I'm talking to him just like I'm talking to you all right now. Away I go. About 1.5 miles from that gateway, coming back into PA, I fall completely asleep at the wheel of the car. Now, mind you, no drugs, no alcohol, not even a Benadryl in my system. It was just fatigue. And I did it so many times before, but I always catch myself. Well, this time I didn't catch myself, okay? I fell asleep. I don't even know how long I was sleeping. My brand new car only had 300 miles on it. I was in a slow lane. I drifted through the fast lane, and I smacked the center guardrail. I hit that center guardrail so hard, my head blew the side of the window of the car. That's how hard I hit. So I was at that point, I wake up, I gain my composure, I get the vehicle back on the road again. Well, now I got a flat tire on the front end. So I have to pull up to change a tire, okay? As I pull up to change a tire and walk to the rear to pull my spare tire out of the trunk, it hits me. This is all you hear in the turnpike, 2 o'clock in the afternoon that day. It was dead silence. There was no cars. I said, my goodness, I could have took a family out. I could have went underneath the tractor trailer, or I could have went to the right in the woods and been dead. That was the last day I worked at UPS. I drove home 20 minutes later to change a tire, called my wife and said, listen, resign tonight. And that's how I got my company started. But they say you get hit in the head with an idea when you start a business up, literally got hit in the head that day. So the takeaway here is, everybody, if you feel yourself getting tired when you're driving that vehicle, get off the road. Especially the older you get, the easier it is to doze off and fall asleep. Pull into the BP, go grab a Coke, stretch, take a cat nap. There's nothing wrong with doing that, okay? There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay, now I'll open your eyes for seconds. You want to look at your driving scene. We talked about your big picture about every 2 seconds or so, back and forth. You do your mirror checks every 6 to 8 seconds. You also want to glance at your instrument panel periodically. One, it breaks the monotony up with just scanning back and forth, but it also tells you some things about the vehicle. Maybe there's a light that comes on. Check how much fuel you got. Maybe the temperature is heating up. So when you look at your instrument panel, it tells you things about the vehicle too, to keep you safe out there. All right, 3 indicators of keeping your eyes moving. The defensive driver, this tells you you're doing it right. You dispose of eye holding problems. You check to the sides at intersections, and you do your mirror checks about every 5 to 8 or 6 to 8 seconds out there, okay? Now, we all know what an eye holding problem is. When this first popped up on the screen, the first thing that probably grabbed your eyes, everybody, was that police car. Now, as drivers, we know we can glance, but we've got to come back to the road again. Some drivers don't understand this. They get locked on an eye holding problem. Next thing you know, they're in trouble. Where this is really prevalent is on a highway. There's a crash on the other side of the highway. Fire engines, police cars, ambulances. Never take your eyes off the person in front of you on this side of the roadway, because there's usually a secondary crash, because the rubberneckers start looking over there. The next thing you know, they crash into the person in front of them, okay? They call it a secondary crash. Keep your eyes on a task at hand when you're out there, everybody. All right, now, give me a second to switch this over here. Give me a second here. Might have to get the technician in here. Let me get her. Hang on 1 second. Hey, Britt. Bear with me, everybody. How do I get my new share? But I gotta get it up first. I can't escape to go out of this, but it won't go out of presentation mode. All right, that was good. That was good.
Okay, so then
What's
hit
that?
okay, and then bring it up down.
This guy's done. All right, just the one I want to share.
This one?
Yep.
Then scroll down. Can you make it bigger?
I want to leave like that.
Okay.
So now I go back to where?
Zoom. And then new share.
Share. There it is. Okay, everybody, check this out. This is really important, all right? This is called motion blindness. Everybody that's sitting in front of their computer right now, stare directly at that middle dot that's in there in the middle of those X's. That's a little red dot. Sometimes it's green. Stare directly at it. Don't move your eyes. Watch what happens to the outside dots. I'll give you a second to look at that. You all should be seeing something happening. Those outside dots go out. They disappear. That's called motion blindness. Well, when we're driving, we're in motion. If we stare direct ahead, we'll miss things on the side. And that's exactly how your eyes work. All right, they call that motion blindness. I can change the scene. I can make it daylight time. It's just easier to see like this. That's why I utilize that. But that's how your eyes work. That's why you want to keep your eyes moving about every 2 seconds, 6 to 8 second mirror checks. And that's exactly the reason why. They call that motion blindness, everybody. Everybody saw that. Okay. Share. Presentation. Good. Okay, now back into these techniques. Next one, all good kids like. L, leave yourself an out. What's meant by the space cushion? You have space on all four sides of the vehicle, but always in the front, and always adjust your speed to visibility when you're driving. If you can't see that far down the road, heavy rain, snow, fog, darkness, slow down a little bit. Give yourself a little more space, okay? Bottom center picture right there, everybody. I kind of threw that up there just for a little pointer. For those of us that live in snow areas where it snows, make sure when you clean your vehicles, you clean the entire vehicle, including the roof, all right? You'll see people driving down the road with that big chunk of ice on top of the road. It's a hazard. It's a hazard. That's why they made it illegal. You can get a ticket for it, everybody, just so you know. So clean your entire car off when you're out there driving. All right, space required from the ahead. Now, when we pull up in traffic, we're talking about when we're driving, we want a space cushion. But when you pull up in traffic, even when you're stopped, you still want enough room in front of you to pull that vehicle out and go around, because the last thing you want to do is put that thing in reverse, all right? So when you pull up in traffic, you leave one vehicle length open in front of you. As long as you can see their tires in the back touch the ground, you're far enough back, which gives you a way out to get out and around. Because that car in front of you might break down and run out of gas. That car in front of you might have some kind of issue. Well, when you're that far back, you can pull out and go around them, okay? Now, if you are one of these people that pull up real close to that car in front of you, and you're real close to that bumper in front of you, and you get rear-ended, you will automatically hit that car in front of you. That's the way physics work. Guess who pays that car in front of you? Your vehicle hit them, so your insurance company pays them. You get dinged to crash, okay? It goes on your record as you hitting that vehicle up there. So you keep that space cushion up, you're rear-ended, your insurance company's out of the picture out there, right? Now, also during wet weather, increase your space cushion. Give yourself a little more room. It's pretty simple, right? Raining, snowing, give yourself a little more room. Stay back a little further. We're all going to get there. All right, 3 indicators, leave yourself the out. This tells you you're doing it right. You adjust your speed to visibility. You recognize doubtful situations. You're always aware of your swerving and stopping distance, where you have to put the vehicle or where you have to stop the vehicle. When driving in rain, everybody, if you notice that bottom left photograph right there, when you're driving in the rain, always drive in the person's tracks ahead of you. That puts your vehicle in less water. You're driving on less water then, less likelihood of hydroplaning. Every tire will hydroplane. Now, obviously, the newer the tire, the more tread it is, the less likelihood it's going to happen. But if you go fast enough, it will hydroplane. So when you're driving a person's tracks ahead of you, you're driving less water then. It gives you a little more opportunity to stay on the road. All right, this is the big issue here. I'm real adamant about this. Don't back that vehicle up unless you absolutely have to. Put yourselves in a position to be successful, because when you put that thing in reverse, bad things can happen, all right? But sometimes we have to back up. Sometimes we put ourselves in a position we have to back up, all right? You have to back up. Make sure you look behind the vehicle. Don't trust your camera. Take a look back there as you're walking up to it. Back immediately. Don't get inside the vehicle, talk on the phone for a little while, hang up and put it reverse, because things change, all right? I'm a big believer in tapping horns. I did it with my commercial clients. Any of my commercial clients out there tap their horn anytime they go to reverse. I don't do it in my vehicles. I don't have my instructors do it either. But it's a good thing to do, because it attracts immediate attention to you. Stay out of driveways. I'm a big believer in that. You know, these young people, when they pull up to their friend's house, park on the street. Don't pull and drive it, because when you go into the house, you come out, something can happen behind your vehicle. A little person could come over and start playing. You may not even know he's there. All right? And plan ahead to avoid backing. Notice these photographs here, the bottom two. My vehicle right there, I'm going into 7-Eleven to buy my first Diet Coke of the day. I'm not getting gas, but notice where I parked my vehicle at. There's 50 gas pumps. I'm not going to hold anybody from getting gas. I walk over to 7-Eleven, I walk back out. What's my first move? D to drive. I'm going forward, okay? Notice the guy down here at Home Depot in a pickup truck. He parked his vehicle 20 yards away and pulled through the spot. Because now when he leaves or she leaves, she's first move is going to be forward. All right, put yourselves in a position to be successful. In these parking lots especially, highest rates of all crashes of every roadway are parking lots. Park further away, pull through the spot. Put yourself in a position to be successful. Like on this little thing here, get out and go look. Again, if you have to back up, if your parents are out there with you in the driveway, 4 eyes better than 2. Use a spotter. Have somebody back you up, okay? Plan ahead to avoid that backing. Don't rely on your backup alarms, because sometimes if you have a beeper in your vehicle, not everybody listening to you anymore. Don't stand or sit in other people's blind spots. And if you are nosed in somewhere, everybody, walk up to your vehicle from the rear to make sure you're clean before you get in and back up, okay? This family here is the Stephen Curtis Chapman family. He's a singer. A couple years back, his 17-year-old son there in the back there backed over and killed his 2-year-old sister sitting on mom's lap there. A needless tragedy, whole situation. And how it happened was it's a really simple situation. People do this every day. Vehicles are parked in the garage. He came through the basement, hit the button on the wall. Garage door goes up. He gets in the vehicle, backs up. A little girl was playing behind the car and ended up killing her dead. Okay, 2 tragedies. You have a 2-year-old dead. 17-year-old brother's going to be on antidepressant drugs probably for the rest of his life. It didn't have to happen. Again, we all got to back up sometime in our life, but it takes 2 seconds to walk back there, look behind the vehicle, make sure you're clean. It takes 2 seconds. That's all. That little girl would still be here today. A little bit about airbag safety, everybody. Make sure when your young people set their vehicle seats up, they're a minimum of 10 inches away from the steering wheel. So if they can get a piece of paper in between them and the steering wheel, far enough back, all right? Now this is 11 inches, but it works. It's a good thing to work, good gauge to work, all right? And the reason for that is airbags. When the airbag deploys, it needs 10 inches to come out and deploy, all right? And they come out pretty fast, about 300 feet per second. So 10 inches away minimum, and make sure you're far enough back, but you're not gangstering. I'm sure you all know what kind of gangstering means. You have the seat tipped way back and you're driving on the road like this, because none of it will protect you. The seat won't protect you. The airbag won't protect you. Your seat's got to be in an upright position in order for that airbag to work correctly. And guess what? Your seat belt's got to be on. Airbags do nothing for you, everybody, when you're laying outside the street, okay? Seniors and children, usually the best place for them is in the back seats, not dealing with the airbag at all. Hand position on the wheel, everybody. 10 and 2 still fine. 9 and 3 still fine. The new preferred method of driving now is 8 and 4 o'clock. You all can try this. Parents can try this as well too. It's very comfortable to drive. I do it most of the time, especially on a highway. It keeps your hands completely away from the airbag, all right? But these are still fine as well too, because the airbag just pops their hands up in the air, all right? Now, make sure you always keep your hands on the outside of the wheel. Back in the day when there's no power steering, we turns like this. We put our hand on the inside of the wheel and made the turn, okay? Well, everybody got that habit. They're still doing it today. Well, now it's power steering, plus there's an airbag in there. If your hand is on the inside of that wheel making that turn like that, usually an intersection, and you get hit and your airbag deploys, it will snap your arm in two. It will second degree burn your arm and break both bones in your arm. Whereas a minor accident you're going to walk away from, now you're on the way to the hospital for surgery for a couple of days, right? So always make sure you keep your hands on the outside of the wheel as you're driving. Lastly, make sure you always keep your feet down. This is usually a female thing, but there might be some guys out there that do this too. You're a passenger in the front seat. You're on a long trip. You kick your shoes off. You put your feet up on a dashboard. We've all probably seen it. All right. If you ever see this, tell them this story. I guarantee their feet come down really fast. All right. My daughter at Penn State a number of years ago, her friend was driving in a vehicle just like that. Feet were up on a dashboard. Boy was driving. He pulls into a shopping center. He's going to run in and grab something to drink, eat, whatever it might be. She stays sitting in a vehicle like that. Okay. Now I'm surmising it was a stick shift. He didn't secure the vehicle correctly. When he went in, the vehicle started drifting in the parking lot. It got going just fast enough that when it hit the light post in the parking lot, the sensor knew she was sitting in that vehicle, deployed that airbag on the side. That passenger airbag is gigantic. Took her feet off that dashboard at 300 feet per second and jammed them straight into the ceiling. Shattered both ankles, shattered both hips. That is a serious injury for anybody to suffer, okay? Now, even if she was sitting in that vehicle with no seatbelt on and hit a light post, she'd have walked away from it. But in case here, didn't know the airbag was there, didn't utilize the airbag safety correctly. So then she's in the hospital for a number of weeks, as a matter of fact. Femurs have been broken that way. So if you see anybody doing that technique, put their feet down, tell them to get their feet down as quick as possible. Okay, this is what I was telling you about with lights, everybody. And again, unbelievable, I turn my lights on 24/7, but you have to do it by law if it's raining. But this is what happens. You'll see people on the highway and driving, they don't put their lights on even when it's raining. But this is what a truck driver sees. That's what a truck driver sees. That truck driver can't even see a person come up with no lights on when it's raining. Very simple for a truck driver to change lanes and take that person out. You know what I mean? So it's very important. Turn your lights on. And again, I do it 24/7. A couple of things on parking lot safety here, everybody. Parking lots, again, highest rates of all accidents of all roadways. Not a lot of injuries because the speeds are slow, but some techniques you want to use when you park in a parking lot. Park further away. On right angle parking spots, park further away, pull through the spot, okay? Put yourself in a position to be successful. Make your first move forward, all right? Parking lot at the gas station, we talked about that one already. Park at the gas pump. You won't hold anybody from getting gas. There's 50 gas pumps there. Don't worry about that, okay? And notice some of the things that do happen in parking lots. Look at this bottom left photograph there. That's the Walmart here in my hometown. That's a pickup truck with a big piece of pipe sticking at the back end, sticking halfway out in the middle of the lane. That's what people do in parking lots, all right? So you really got to be aware. We tell our clients to make sure you're like a bobblehead driving through that parking lot. Your head and eyes that are constantly looking because they come at you from all angles in parking lots. Okay, a little bit about cruise control, everybody. When not to use cruise control. You don't use it in the rain. You don't use it in the snow. You don't use it in the fog either, okay? Any inclement weather, you just don't use it. Heavy traffic's another time. One else you wouldn't want to use is construction zones, mountainous or hilly terrain, and when you're fatigued. Because fatigue, if you're fatigued, you have the cruise control on, it can make you really doze off, okay? So it's just, those are simple techniques not to use cruise control, especially in bad weather. A couple things about blind spot driving. We all know there's blind spots all around our vehicles, everybody, but one of the most critical ones that no one pays attention to is the one that's on the left-hand side, and the one that's on the right-hand side of your vehicle, okay? Normally that comes into play when you're changing lanes. 3 things you need to do in order when you change lanes. Signal, check mirrors, look over shoulder. Signal, check mirrors, look over shoulder. Now, everybody's gonna say, well, I got that technology in my car that beeps if somebody's in that thing. We got that too. Well, guess what happens? What happens if it's not working that day? And you make a lane change and hit the car next to you? It's not the car's fault. It's the person driving's fault. So it's signal, check mirrors, look over shoulder. It's very simple, just a quick head turn. Your peripheral vision will kick up and clear that blind spot out for you. Very, very important to clear that blind spot. That'll save you from a crash one day. All right, here's 3 indicators, making sure they see you. This tells you you're doing it right. You establish eye contact. You don't trust others to stay put. You signal your intentions well in advance. And you never trust people in parked cars. A parked car, when you go by, every parked car you go by, assume it's going to move at you. Look for those signs it's going to move. Tailpipe smoke, lights coming on, wheels start to turn on, a person sitting in the vehicle, windshield wipe down. They're all signs that they might move at you. So be very, very critical as you go by a parked car. This one's critical. Second worst crash you can have, we already talked about, our intersection crashes, everybody. So make sure if you're the first vehicle in line at a red light, you're sitting at that red light waiting for it to go green. As soon as it goes green, don't hit that gas. You hold that vehicle for 3 whole seconds, okay? It's called clearing the intersection. How you gauge 3 seconds is extremely simple. As soon as it goes green, you look left, right, left, and then you start moving. And as you start moving, keep your eyes moving. Now, the reason why you wait 3 seconds, because that's normally when people run red lights. Well, if you sit for 3 seconds, guess what? You cannot get hit in an intersection. Now, people run red lights 7 and 8 seconds late too, but the chances start to come way down. But as you start going, you keep your eyes moving at that intersection as well too, all right? Now, when a person sits, especially a young person, when they first start driving, they hate hearing the horn blown at them. Who cares? Let them blow the horn. Because I'm gonna tell you, when you sit there for 3 seconds like that, that person that's on their way to Walmart for that sale, they're gonna blow the horn at you. What you do in that situation is kind of wave in the rearview mirror and say, thank you very much for letting me know I'm doing it right. Because you might have saved them from a crash as well too. But you hold that vehicle for 3 whole seconds, let that person blow the horn, okay? It's called clearing that intersection. A couple things about distractions as we get come closer to the end here. 3 types of distractions, everybody. There's manual, visual, and cognitive. In 2019, there's about 3,300 deaths, 421,000 injuries due to distracted drivers, okay? 6.3 billion texts sent each day in the United States, and I wonder how many of them are driving. You're 4 times more likely to crash when you're using a handheld cell phone, all right? Now, my vehicles came, when I started buying these vehicles, they come with a sync system. Many of your vehicles have that sync system where the phone rings to your radio and you talk to this little hole in the ceiling. Don't think that's any better, okay? So when we started getting that, I was testing it out. I still had the same feeling talking to that hole in the ceiling as I did when I had phones in my ear. So I turned them all off and then when my instructors using them, all right? A couple weeks later, Carnegie Mellon University, the gigantic university here in Pittsburgh, I mean, they make things that go to Mars. That's how smart these people are, right? They did a driving study. They put drivers in vehicles, wired their brains all up, put them through driving courses. Some use the cell phone, some use the Bluetooth, some use that sync system. All 3 systems fare the exact same way. It diminishes their brain decision-making power by about 37%. So don't think because you have Bluetooth, don't think because you have that hole in the ceiling, or don't think because you're using a handheld, you're gonna be safe out there, right? Pull over, use them all you want. It's not worth it, all right? Especially that young driver. Especially that their brains are not fully developed to age 25, and cell phone is very big distractions for them. All right. And again, look up here. I think I mentioned before, 4.2 seconds. The average text takes to send or receive. 55 miles an hour. You just went the length of a football field blind. And here's a cell phone. The reason why the cell phone is so horrible when you're driving, it's all 3 distractions wrapped up into one. It's not just one. It's all 3 of them: manual, visual, and cognitive. Okay. That's why a lot of states are banning the cell phone use completely. A lot of the companies we work with, once they see these stats and we do some training with them, their new company policy is they're not using the cell phone at all unless the vehicle's stopped, okay? So think about that out there with your young person. Here's some non-distracted driving practices, everybody. You want to avoid your multitasking, you're driving, concentrate on the job at hand. That's that steering wheel and those gas pedals and everybody's going around you. Use your cell phone only when stopped. Print before you drive too. Regulate your meds. Drive rested and secure your passengers, pets, and stuff inside the vehicle. Make sure your vehicle is fairly cleaned up, because if the vehicle's a mess, something could blow up and distract you off the road as well too. 95% of crashes are human factors. Less than 5% are roadway. Less than 1% of the factors are vehicle factors. We're the ones crashing the cars, everybody. Human beings are the ones doing it, okay? And if you apply these techniques we went over this evening, there's a good chance you're not going to ever have that crash. There's the 5 steps to expert seeing and driving. Aim high, get the big picture, keep your eyes moving, leave your cell phone out, and make sure they see you, okay? Those are the 5 things. Now, lastly, I just want to pass on to everybody, as leaders in our community, we got to make sure we do everything we can to help the future leaders stay alive in these vehicles, all right? Please feel free to call me. Michael has my contact information. You can call, email, text me with questions and stuff like that. I'd love to have them. I love entertaining questions. But I got one last video here to show everybody. It's about 3 minutes. And when this video is done, I'm going to hang out in case there are some questions, but I won't speak anymore after this video, okay? Bear with me 1 second. I'll probably have to call my technical person in. Hey, Britt. All right, I got one last video to show. How do I get to that? Bring it up. What did you hit?
Escape.
I did twice, 3 times. Didn't come out.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, pretty good, this one. Where's my arm? See, I'm gonna get to it.
I'll hit new share. Oh wait, stop. Hit X. Hit stop share.
Okay. Go here. Shut this one down. Go here. Should come up share now, right?
Yeah.
Screen. Where's that? I just put up.
Right here.
Okay, everybody. I gotta start sharing again, right?
Well, you have to make it. You can make it bigger and then.
All right. So after this video is over, everybody, it's about 2 or 3 minutes here. When this video is over, I won't speak anymore, but I'll just hang out here. If you guys have questions, I'll be glad to entertain. Give me 1 second, get this rolling.
I just remember sitting at home thinking to myself, it's like, I have no one. Like, my friends were there for me at first, but after a while, they weren't.
I looked up on her Facebook page and she said on there, can anybody please hang out with me today? I don't have any friends.
Before the car accident, the things I did in high school with my friends were, just go to the high school games and everything. Every weekend go to a party, go bowling. I was a good student. I was a role model. I was like a preppy little girl in high school, so I used to model.
My main worry for Liz as a parent before she started driving was the typical teenage things, the drugs and the alcohol and, being safe and hanging around the right kind of kids and keeping her grades up. I did not think that Liz was connected to her mobile phone. I didn't realize that she loved her phone as much as she did.
I used my cell phone every second, every minute, every hour. Like, if I didn't have it, I would freak out because I couldn't connect with my friends. I couldn't connect with anyone. Couldn't connect with social media or anything. Like, if I didn't have my cell phone, I felt lonely.
I would ask her all the time, Liz, do you text and drive? And she said, no, Mom, I swear I don't. Don't worry, I don't use my phone when I'm behind the wheel.
I ignored these warnings about texting while driving because everyone else was doing it, so I thought it was okay. I thought I was invincible, but clearly, I was completely wrong.
I was getting ready for work, and then 12 hours later, I'm in ICU staring at my daughter, who's bald, and tubes running in and out of her body, and it's just overwhelming devastation over a stupid text.
The consequences of my life now after the car accident is the fact that I'm blind in one eye now. I cannot smell. I cannot hear that very good because a bone broke in half and covered my eardrum. I can't create tears because both my tear ducts got damaged, and I can't put my body to sleep naturally. I take medicine and go to sleep. The hardest part about my life after the car accident was the fact that I was alone. Everyone was away at college. I wasn't. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go to college. My friends were there for me at first, but after a while, they weren't. They got tired of me. They got tired of all my problems.
Don't text your loved ones when you know they're driving. It can change their lives forever.
If you get a text, don't look at it. It's not worth it.
Get this extremely high-tech $3,000 drone for a fraction of the price. This drone engineer
drone at an incredibly low price, and he just destroyed the billion.
Does anybody have any questions for Jim? It was a very good presentation. Thank you so much for doing that for us.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate coming out because again, the way I look at it is we can keep these young people safe and educate their parents. That means my family's gonna be a lot safer on the road, and you never know. We might be dealing with a doctor out there that has a cure for cancer. We never know.
Right. Well, if nobody has any questions, we'll go ahead and give everybody their evening back. Thank you so much again, Jim. Thank you,
Hey, thank
everybody,
you.
for participating, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.